What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 3 prop and betting stream for the Tour Championship. Today was another smash day, plus 10 units into the profit for all of my exposure, and every single prop that we talked about on yesterday's live stream ended up hitting. So hopefully you guys took advantage. Looks like Jose was able to. Also, Xavier hit on all those fairway and green props, and Jose says that he's going to buy his mama a car and spend the rest on something I can't say on stream, but that's one of the funnier comments I think I've ever seen out there. Glad to see that you found some success. Loyal with a question. By the way, if you need a Discord invite, just send me a DM on Patreon and I got you. If James is as well, who's eyeing up Scheffler at plus 500, hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day so far. And here in this video, I'm going to get you ready for all of your exposure tomorrow. So feel free to hit me up with any specific questions or bets that you want me to deep dive. But we're going to focus on conditions, what to expect for moving day. And then also we'll give you a little bit of betting exposure as well to give you a little taste of what to expect for tomorrow. So first and foremost, we have the Tour Championship averages on here, which played even easier than round number 1. With lift clean in place ending up being the case, that was not really that surprising, and in fact was great for our exposure. I took a whole bunch of overs on these bottom 2 categories, even some overs on birdies like a Harry Hall at that 4.5 that all pretty much ended up cashing. So I would say that the conditions for round 3 are going to be pretty similar to the first few days, assuming, and again, it was a big if for round number 2, assuming lift clean in place is going to be a thing. But when we take a look at the forecast and the chance for rain during play tomorrow and some rain overnight in Atlanta, I think there's a really good chance that that is going to be the case. So you can see on this HRRR that they're calling for some sort of a storm around 3 to 4 a.m. They aren't starting till about midday, but that kind of a storm and the chance for storms in the afternoon, in my opinion, means that they'll probably take the safer approach and play it with ball in hand. You also have the GFS model that's calling for a lot more rain, and this is one of the more accurate models that we have out of these 5. You know, some of them I kind of throw to the side. They're not that meaningful, but GFS and the HRRR are both calling for rain. GFS also some rain overnight at East Lake, which has me thinking that the -3 scoring average, 10 to maybe 9 fairways hit per round, and then the 12.75 to 13 green average that we've had for the first few days is probably going to be the same case for the next day. And another thing to add on top of it, guys, is that pin locations were easy for round 2, but they could make them easier for moving day, right? Oftentimes, hole 8 at this course is a drivable par 4. They did that for 2 of the 4 rounds last year, and they haven't done it either round yet. So there could be a chance that they make that about 300 yards for moving day. They have moved up 15 tees, so that's a par 3. They made that one only about 150, 160 yards for the first few rounds. But let's say that they move up 8 and then they move back 15 to make it a little bit of a harder test. That probably equals out when you consider both of those factors at the same time. So I'm not moving these averages that much. We actually don't have the pin locations quite yet. When we get the pin sheet, when we're able to see exactly where they're putting the holes, maybe we can make some inferences on whether they're potentially going to move up those tee boxes or push them a little bit further back. But at least until we get that information, I'm running it with pretty flat averages. The one thing I would say is that the winds look low. That's consistent with the first few rounds. The one thing that kind of concerns me, and it's mostly this GFS model that concerns me, would be a consistent stream of rain. Now, they're starting in the afternoon, so we have to look at the afternoon on this forecast as the actual playing window, and they've got thunderstorms on there, which wouldn't really be that terrible. If there's thunderstorms and they have to finish up afterwards, that would probably lead to even better scoring conditions because the course would get softer. What I'm worried about is if these aren't thunderstorms, if they're just, you know, a mist that is consistent throughout the day. If they have to play through wet conditions tomorrow, I don't think that that's advantageous. But I would say that based on the HRRR, that is the most accurate model that we have out of all of these, not calling for that kind of sustained rain. I'm not that worried about it, but it is at least in the back of my mind. So at least for my exposure as of right now, before we see the forecast tomorrow morning, because play doesn't start till noon, we're going to have the whole morning to adjust to the weather. And as we get closer to lock, we're obviously going to have a better sense of whether it's going to rain during play or not. So I'm still going with exposure right now, but tomorrow morning after we get that news, also, they'll probably tweet out the lift clean in place news at some point as well. Then we'll be able to attack even more exposure like what we did for today. So, you know, I hate to be the bearer of bad news on that sort of stuff, but it's always the prudent thing when we have this sort of a situation is to wait until we have all the information to truly deploy all of those nukes. So, we're going to talk through some exposure here. I'm going to give you guys 2 slips, one on Prize Picks, one on Underdog, also a couple 2-ball bets that have already mixed in, but there's going to be a lot more exposure that I probably get to for round 3. And for that, you can find that on my Patreon page. That's where I'll be posting some updates tomorrow. And maybe you want to follow my X/Twitter as well, because I oftentimes post some extra content and extra slips over there as well. And those are for free, of course, if they're posted on X/Twitter. For everything, Patreon page is obviously the place to be, I should say. Let's go to the first slip I'm taking. So this is the one that has not bumped yet. This is the exact same slip that I've bet myself. So this is the one that I would mainly advise people to tail. It's a JT under on strokes. It's a Patrick Cantlay under on strokes as well. And it's an over on Robert McIntyre greens. And let's start with these top 2 players because it's the same category and it's the same kind of reasoning for why I'm getting to those 2. So first and foremost, average was minus 3.2. That was less than 67 strokes. That means that at least compared to the round 1 and 2 average, round 1, it was closer to like minus 2.7, minus 2.8. They have an average day and they cover that sort of a line for us. JT Cantlay are above average players. Both are in the top 7 at this point, and both are also gaining in the ball striking in round number 2, especially Cantlay is one of the best players in that category out of the entire field. JT's been a little short game dependent, especially round 1. That's why I kind of avoided him for props today. And it was probably a good thing that I did because he didn't have as low of a round. Is he gained like 4 strokes putting for Thursday's action, which is completely unsustainable for a player like him. He's always a little bit more ball striking heavy, but I like that he brought it around with the approach playing off the tee play today. So that's why I'm going to the under 67.5. If you look at course history at Eastlake, he's number 1 of everyone in the field. So he plays his best golf at this golf course in terms of shots gained per round compared to anyone else that is teeing it up. And again, an average day covers this. Again, this is assuming live clean in place, but I feel pretty safe making that assumption given the fact that they do have some rain in that forecast for tomorrow. Live clean in place, have an average round cover, this sort of thing, and I'm going to be thrilled to take that. And I am having my AC fixed right now, so sorry if it looks like I'm going crazy over here sweating and whatnot. It's because I am. It's hot as hell in here. It's in Florida during the late summertime, so as you can imagine, it is a little sub-ideal here. We also have the Patrick Cantlay under at 67.5. He doesn't have as elite of course history as a Justin Thomas. He's like top 10 in the field when it comes to shots gained per round, but he also won this event one time and he was in contention to win it another. So he's had a couple down years. I think that's why the shots gained per round on average aren't as elite as some of the other players in this field. When he plays well at Eastlake, he normally makes it count. So again, having an average day, I think is very reasonable for Patrick Cantlay. And if you take a look at their odds on a site like Draftkings, FanDuel, he's minus 130. Both of those players, I should say, are minus 130 for their under on Draftkings. Haven't checked FanDuel, but I'm assuming it's in that same sort of range. So, maybe slight plus EV value, but more than anything, guys that from the traditional analysis perspective really check the box, which is the most important thing when you're doing golf betting. I know some other markets like NFL, NBA, a lot of people really lean into the plus EV stuff. The lines makers in golf aren't that great at what they do. And that's why we've been so profitable over the last few years, is just exploiting a lot of those mistakes. So it's great to see that minus 130, but I really think it should probably be a lot more juice than that, if we're being honest. So if you're on the sports books, if you have access to those minus 130s, Hard Rock Bet, by the way, is the sports book that I can play here in Florida. It does not have those round score sort of bets available. But if I could bet them at like minus 130, I would for straight bets on top of what we're doing here for Pick'em. And then we're going with some correlation. So this is a 4.75x payout. It says up to 6x if you get in first place, but I've never gone that full 6x payout on one of those things. I think it's just them kind of saying that you can get 6x. It's never actually happened to practicality. But a Robert McIntyre at 12 greens regulation, the average today was 12.73 per round, and 16 of the 30 players hit 13 or more. So that was over half the field that were getting the job done there. I don't have the number that hit 12 or more, but I think it was like, I don't know, it was in the low 20s of players that hit 12 or more, but it was over 2/3 of the field that were at least pushing this sort of line. And if you take a look at Robert McIntyre's success for greens regulation for the year, he's number 41 on tour when it comes to the category. So top 50, well above the average for this field when it comes to hitting greens. So if the average is 12.73 and he's at 12, I think there's value towards the over. And if you take a look at the DraftKings lines, like he's at 12.5, but he's just towards the under. I vehemently disagree with that. And if you guys saw the kind of slips that I was posting that I hit over from my Patreon page last night that I posted on my X/Twitter after today's slate, posting the plus 10 unit day and whatever. There was a lot of green regulation overs that I took, and some of them that had multipliers towards the over, like 1.15x, 1.1x for like a Ben Griffin, for example, that sure, like there's juice towards the under. If you were a plus EV better, you might have been taking their unders there, but you got cooked today, right? Because these sports books don't always get things right. So this is why I think there's a lot of value on these categories this week, because the sports books, for whatever reason, are just projecting these categories completely incorrect. So that's the 3-man over there, again, for 4.75x. Maybe not ideal, but we do get some decent lines on these top two, and Robert McIntyre at 12 as opposed to 12.5. So that's why I chose to take it there as opposed to a little bit over a 5x if we took McIntyre at 12.5 on Underdog. But the slip that I took over here, and it looks like some of them are getting ripped off the board, huh? I had that Sam Burns over. Let's refresh this and see if that's still going to be available. The lines I got over here on 2 out of the 3 have moved quite significantly from when I first took them. And I think it's for good reason. Like there's a reason why I hammered these 3 as the first bet that I took. But I took these 3 bets that you see to the right over here for a 5x payout. So it's moved 1.2x. I probably wouldn't enter it right now. I would not recommend it as like a plus EV play or anything at this point. But I know some people out there don't really care. They just kind of want to enter shit for the hell of it. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your money. I would never do that sort of thing, but I at least do give you guys some perspective onto what I was entering earlier so that you can use this analysis and translate it to other guys on the board, right? Because just because I took these 3 as my overs on fairways that I like does not mean that you have to be limited to just these 3 players. And in fact, later on my Patreon page, there's a good chance I'm adding some extra overs on fairways that aren't just these 3 particular players. And I would say as of right now, if you really just wanted to build around one of them, take Ben Griffin. That one hasn't moved. He was even money when I first took it, and maybe take these other 2 out and build around it instead. But let's talk through these, okay? These I thought were egregiously mispriced. If we go back to the averages, the fairway average was 10.03 per round. That's as high as I've ever seen it at one of these golf courses before, which means even if they lose an entire fairway to the field, a whole fairway to, the 15 mark, they're going to still go over that sort of line. And for Sam Burns, that was egregious. Sam Burns is an above average driving accuracy player. So for him to be 1.5 fairways below that average just makes absolutely no sense. And by the way, he's hit 10 plus fairways the first 2 days. So it's not even like he's got bad form, and that's why they're projecting him lower. The other 2 players, Hideki and Ben Griffin, they are average to slightly below average accuracy guys. But even then, being a whole fairway and a half lower than that field average is, I thought, a pretty big mistake there. So I would probably take Hideki out of here, as the 0.89x multiplier is probably not worth it on that one. I would be a little bit more okay playing the Sam Burns one here, just because he is a better fairway percentage guy than the other 2 players. Andy's hit 10 plus the first few days. So like he seems to be in a groove with the driver, likes to look off the tee, whatever the case may be. He's had some success for the first few days at this point. I wouldn't be against that, but like fairways in general, I think are mispriced over here. Let's look at some of these elite tier guys and go back to the average. The average was 10 fairways per round. I'm a little worried that they're going to move up 8 and make it drivable. That would lower the fairway average a bit, because they were laying up there. It was pretty much a gimme fairway for the field. But let's say it drops half. I mean, half a fairway would be a big difference. And I actually think it would probably be less than a half a fairway difference. If they moved up 8, let's say it's still like a 9.5 fairway average. I still love all the other props that I've taken. Like, it doesn't change those ones that much. But let's look at these elite tier guys, like a Ryan Harmon, a Sepp Straka, a Russell Henley, these players that are top 5, top 25 on tour in driving accuracy. How the hell are they at the projected field average, or even a little bit lower than that projected field average? So I haven't entered any of these yet, but like a Corey Connors, a Sepp Straka, right, using that same sort of idea would also be pretty heavy values towards the over. So I would say that for some of these 9.5s, just because hitting 10 out of 14 does give you slightly less margin for error, they are better players though. So maybe it is warranted, right, taking them at that slightly inflated number. I would be really behind these sort of guys, though, if I knew that they weren't moving up hole 8. If they play 8 to 400 yards and it's still that layup kind of pitch and putt par 4, these are absolutely nuclear plays towards the over. And I'm not sure what the sportsbook odds are on these two, because again, I line shopped the ones that I actually entered, not the ones that I haven't quite gotten to yet, as the board just dropped about an hour ago. But I would assume that they're probably even money, if not juiced towards the over at this. In fact, I'm far too curious not to look it up right now. So give me a second here while we bring up Draftkings. if their value's towards the over, I'm going to enter this right now because I think that the board is mispriced to begin with. But if the sports books are even leaning on the over with that in mind, then they're probably even better value. So Straka's minus 120 over, so he doesn't have that much juice for that sort of one. We want to look at Henley. We want to look at Connors. Connors preferably because he's at even money. He doesn't have a multiplier on it like you have with Henley. So he is about even money too. I'm still okay with the over leans there. I was going to say I'd enter them right here this second if they were juiced towards the over. But these sports books make mistakes all the time. And I think there's quite a bit of value if you take some fairway overs as well. So that's going to be it for the pick'em side. Again, guys, all the other exposure that I'm getting to will be posted on my Patreon page. Going to be waiting on some of that tomorrow morning until we get that lift, clean, and place news. But these fairway lines, they don't have them on Prize Picks. So they only have the green regulation board up over there. Could be really the best value that we have on this kind of slate. Then the two matchups I want to go through before I open it up to any questions that you guys threw in the chat would be a Harry Hall and a Ben Griffin 2-ball. So both of these are 2-balls that I placed at around minus 120 odds. It's exactly that for Hall. It's minus 125 for Ben Griffin. Harry Hall is significantly better than Sungjae over the last 24 rounds. In fact, I'll bring up Bet the Number so I can just show you the exact stat breakdown. I could just talk about the shots gained per round, but we can show off Bet the Number. They, of course, are the sponsor of this live stream, so you get to give them some airtime here by showing off the matchup tool. If we go to the last 24 rounds, we're going to do the Harry Hall versus Sungjae one first. So Harry Hall versus Sungjae. He is 2.32 shots gained better per round. That is absurdly better for Harry Hall. So I know that this event so far, they've been about the same, hence why they're paired up with each other. Like it's kind of like a no shit Sherlock sort of thing. But he's minus 120, just hardly better than even money. And he's over 2 strokes better per round. So I'll take that all day. And then with the Ben Griffin one, so that's Griffin versus Bhatia. Let's see. So let's go Griffin. Put Bhatia as the second man in here. Griffin is about 0.66 shots gained better per round, which is not a massive difference, but it's a big enough difference for me to want to get there, especially with Griffin. If we look at the shots gained so far this week, it's kind of similar between these two players, but you can see Griffin killing it tee to green, losing putting. It's been kind of similar for an Akshay Bhatia, but Griffin's been by far the better player with the driver so far. And this is a pretty driver heavy course. You keep it in the short stuff, especially with lift, clean, and place, and you're going to be able to attack. So give me Griffin, who's, again, the better player over the last 24 rounds, and at least shots gained wise has a slightly more favorable shots gained profile. And it's only minus 125 odds. So again, pretty close to that even money mark. But this Harry Hall one, I've got to admit, of the two, it's just like a blatant misprice. Like I know that Sungjae's played decently at this course before. Like he's in fact in the top 10 of shots gained per round around in East Lake, but he's not playing that kind of golf anymore. Like he's playing pretty shitty golf. In fact, he's probably the worst player in this field for all of the 2025 stats. So give me Harry Hall, who's been maybe the most consistent player over the last few months. So those are some of the props that I'm getting to for tomorrow, guys. Again, the rest of the exposure can't be found on the Patreon page. Link down below to join the Patreon. It's the golf prop tier that you want to join for all of that. But let's catch up on those questions that you've got. Let's see. So, yep, let's keep it rolling, Noah. You know it. You said you hit 2, bro. You can't wait for round 3. Of course. Yeah, it looks like everyone did, right? If you watched the live stream, you probably hit yesterday. So that's good to see. Marcus Teague, part of that as well, probably. You said you'll be 100% be signing up for my Patreon. Yeah, I'd recommend it, man. It pays for itself in like a slate or two. I mean, we don't profit every day. I don't, pretend to be just like a money printer or anything like that. But over a couple event sample size, it's going to pay for itself if you're playing $10 units. And I mean, most people are playing much larger than $10 units that are in my Patreon page. So I'd highly recommend it. You said, should we trust Fleetwood? So I like Fleetwood this week. He was one of my core plays and whatnot. I would say I would trust him a lot more tomorrow than Sunday. If he's in contention for the Tour Championship on Sunday, I do worry about the nerves kind of impacting him more than most other players. But tomorrow, before that's really as much of a factor, yeah, I like myself some Tommy Ladden. I hope he can get some sort of a lead cooked up there for Sunday. Because like I said, if he's anywhere close to the lead, it's going to be hold on and hope because we know his track record when in contention. Chris Goddard for the over at 67.5. I don't know if that's my favorite sort of play, man, because I have the field average at about -3. I will say that Goddard is an average to below average player. So like, I don't think that it's completely crazy to be looking at overs for those kind of guys at 67.5, but I'm a little hesitant about it. Because let's think about if they move up 8, right? If they move up 8, that plays like 0.3 to 0.4 strokes easier. They do some other moving day pins that play easier than it has the first few days. and it could play to a -4 scoring average for all we know. So that's the hesitation on that one, man. I am a little bit more willing to get to positive stance plays because I think any course changes for tomorrow would actually make the course easier. Outside of that rain, that's the one thing I'm worried about, as we mentioned before. He said, what's going on? You're looking at Hall for the under at 67.5. I could get behind that at plus 100. You know, you're getting slightly better odds than you are for your implied odds on the pick'em sites. Pick'em sites, it's closer to that -130 implied odds. Plus 100, I'd be willing to bite on that, though. You're looking at Morikawa over 12.5 greens. Yeah, I played that today and it worked out for me. I would say that, you know, a lot of why I liked it yesterday would be why I like it for tomorrow's round as well. However, it depends on the odds that you're getting, because if you're talking about a pick'em site, it's probably not worth taking at even money, because on the sports books, I think he's juiced a little bit towards the under. So, you know, on a site like maybe Underdog that adds multipliers, if you can get a slightly boosted payout there, that's probably the better spot to do it. Or even as like a straight bet on the sports books would be my preferred locations to take that sort of a lean. And you said, should you not make slips till the morning? You want to go kind of like light right now, right? Like I went with 2 slips and then 2 balls. Like I'm not going overboard with it. I'll probably deploy, that's probably half my exposure. I'll probably do another half in the morning after we get that information. You said, so Prize Picks isn't dropping a fairway board. Yeah, I mean, it's smart by them. I would say that it's because of the hesitation of them moving up 8 and the fact that they don't agree with the sports book. So that's on them, right? They don't have to post every board if they think it's to their advantage, which I have to say I agree with. So I'm not going to give them that much shit for it, especially when I think it's a smart thing. You said Henley for the over at 12.5 greens. Same thing as I was saying here with Siwa Spot. You don't want to be taking him at even money on a site like Prize Picks when he's -140 towards the under on the sports books. So the way that I took it today is I took those 2 for overs and they hit for me is because I took them on Underdog for a boosted payout. They were both like 1.05x, something in that range on each play. So I took advantage of it that way, right? I got that slightly boosted payout. If you can get that plus 100 or that plus 105 that's available on like Draftkings, then by all means. But I would not play it on a pick'em site, because what you've got to realize, guys, is that every single prop you're taking on Prize Picks Underdog is essentially a -130. Actually, it's even worse than -130 on some sort of slips, depending on the payout combination that you're taking. You don't want to be eating plus 100 props at -130 on a pick'em site, right? That's just like a losing strategy. That's why you've got to line shop it a little bit. What about Scotty for the over at 9.5 at plus money? I could get behind that. He's another elite tier driver. He's not quite your Russell Henleys, your Strakas with the accuracy, but he is top 50 on tour in the category. So I like that. And in fact, like on a site like Underdog, where you'll get that with a multiplier, like I could get behind that for sure. Would I recommend betting on props even as singles, or would I always suggest doubling them up? Not really exactly sure what you're saying there. You're saying, do I bet like singles for like round score? If I could, I absolutely would. I mean, that's something I said earlier on this live stream, right? Like if I could bet the Justin Thomas, the Patrick Cantlays at -130, I would, but we don't have that down here in South Florida. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm not really sure what you were asking. Maybe that was the gist there, but let me know if not. He said, any indication if they're using the new box on 15? It's not a new box. It was there all of last year, Brett, but they only used it for one of the 4 days last year. So it could be a big for like prop betting on that hole. But my guess is, Brett, is they probably aren't posting those whole 15 props until they have that information. And if they do post those props, it's probably because they have the information ahead of time. So there's no way for us to know that until we actually see it in play tomorrow. But the thing that you want to check on, Brett, is that after they start play, it is on the back nine. It's 15, so it's going to get loaded in a little bit later. But like as soon as play starts, the whole front nine will get loaded in with tee boxes. Like you'll be able to see on the shot tracker exactly where they are. Not so much for the back nine. Like it'll take them maybe a half an hour to load in those holes, but that would be the best way to approach that. He said, you think we're all hoping that Tommy Ladd goes into the round 4 with a 4-shot lead? Yeah. I don't think you're as hot on that because I know you're a Euro, right? You want to see your guy do well. I want to see him actually win the damn thing. So it's not just to see what'll happen to him with like a 4-shot lead. I legitimately think that if he wins this week, it would just be such a great story. I mean, he's never won before, wins the Tour Championship as his first ever win against the world's best players, all starting from zero. So it's not even like he was handicapped and that's how he got to the winner's circle. I mean, it would just be storybook ending. I mean, you could write a movie about that sort of thing. So I'm rooting for him for sure. But I think if he gets that 4-shot lead that we all kind of know in the back of our head what's probably going to happen. But a lot of us, like myself, hope that we're wrong about that and that he proves all of the haters wrong and whatnot. But that's all I've got, guys. Best of luck with all of your exposure for round 3. Going to go ahead and cut off the live stream here. Patreon page is where you can find all the rest of my exposure. But let's get it for moving day.